never forget.
He lives in Atlanta, so I had to allow it.
forget.
He couldn't just go, okay, let's start recording the podcast. Let's start going. I'm going right now.
I'll need to double check, but I think they sell shirts outside of Atlanta. But I could be wrong.
Shut the fuck up.
Oh,
shut up.
This is one of my favorite silly but consequential fights we've had when you made us stink about the turtleneck. I love that turtleneck so much.
I
look amazing in it.
I stand firm that the turtleneck is the worst thing created by man.
You stand firm in your
That's
hypocrisy?
not true. The doily, remember that? The turtleneck that was just to here? So you'd wear it like underneath a shirt, but it was just a turtleneck and it was just cut to right here.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not making this up. Hold on. Is it called a doily? What's it called?
I don't know. I thought you meant like
fake turtleneck. Hold on. Fake turtle dickie. It's called a dickie.
Oh, a dickie.
And it's a mock turtleneck. You legit just wear. It just comes down. This is a wild picture that I have found of this woman wearing a. Here's a woman.
Oh,
I'm gonna put it in.
oh,
did you look
now
it up?
I see it. Okay. Yeah, what is that?
That's the style, baby. I used to have one of those when I was like in 7th grade. I'd wear it to like a dance. I thought I was the hottest of
Are you
shit.
serious? I've never seen one of these before.
Oh, it was bad. It was, yeah.
I have never. I
embarrassing.
don't even know. So you wear it over a shirt?
You wear well, yeah, like you. No. Well, no. I mean, you wear it. You. It's not like a full turtleneck. You know, let's say you don't want to get too hot, but you still want to look, fucking aces. So you put on this fake turtleneck, and then over top of it, you put on like a V-neck sweater, and you're like, "What's up?" I'm definitely not gonna get too hot because under this sweater is just my belly, dude. I've tricked you.
See, this is what I find frustrating because I think if one wants to wear a turtleneck, you need to commit to it. I don't like this.
Well, I mean,
it's a lifestyle, John.
Can we please record the episode? I don't want to be down here all fucking night.
Well, I'm so sorry. I didn't know my company was so upsetting to you.
I said nothing about you. I said nothing about you at all.
I had
this
no
is something
idea.
You had inferred.
I had no idea. Oh, he's about to do. Are you about to do? Are we about to have like a Steven Crowder debate?
Oh, are we?
Debate bro terminology.
Doesn't that guy drink like dog or something?
That's an ad hominem, I'm afraid.
I think I read that truthfully. That Steven Crowder loves to drink animal.
What?
That's a true statement.
Is this like one of those primal "this is what men do" things?
No, I'm just kidding. He's a sack of shit. I just came up with
Okay.
something. But it wouldn't shock me if he drank like Reagan's. If they had like frozen Reagan that somebody was hawking. That's how we make money, by the way. We freeze milk, and I say I found this in Reagan's property. And we just hawk it to a bunch of boomers.
Well, I have a great idea for making money. So after the podcast ends, I'm thinking of transitioning the Hop-Ons to a technology AI company. I have some. I haven't quite finished with the pitch yet, but
that's not a very good one. I would say no.
Well, you haven't seen the graphs and the iconography.
That's all it takes. If you ever want to impress anybody, one graph, you go look at this fucking.
It's all
thing.
about like check this out. I'll show you my computer. Like one of the slides.
Now, what is that?
Well, you see, it's a slide. I may have Googled. Old lady, and I included, the word compassion. Doesn't that look good?
Now, we as a company are going to help people come. Like, if people are Googling, I need. Well, they're hop-onsing. We have to. It doesn't really flow off the tongue as like a verb.
No. It's not. See, check it out. Hop-Ons Inc.
What is this? What have you done? What are you doing? What is this?
So here, I can show you. No, it's we will be an AI because AI is really popular. I thought we could get, now that we won't be podcasting, we can direct all of this energy toward creating artificial intelligence. And so we'll make the world better. And we'll have 3 missions statement. See, check it out.
What have you done? What are you making? Did you make this?
Yeah.
You spent time and made this?
Like 10 minutes, yeah.
That is the dumbest fucking thing I have legit seen. An old lady with the word compassion, and now you've picked sort of the worst fonts imaginable.
No. So you see, we'll have 3 missions.
Does that say connection?
Connection.
It's just 2 people holding with hands up.
Compassion. Yeah.
And what's the last one say?
The future.
The future, and that's just someone running.
Well, it's a child.
So this is what we're taking to angel investors and hoping that they're going to give us.
Yeah. So check this out.
When they ask how much do you know about computers, are you just going to point at me?
You're the Wozniak. You're the tech guy. See, look, I already have I already have a name. So the proprietary technology, as you can see, it's called the Omega Theta Olympic AI Technologies. See, look, I have it right here.
Can we start? Can we please start?
We can start. This is a great idea. So once I have it ready, I'll let you know.
I'll go ahead and mark again here. That's for you, future Colin.
Thank you, buddy.
That is I'm at the 6:15 minute mark because I stopped mine, so I'm just letting you know. When you listen back, that's where the episode proper begins.
Thank you.
Sweet fuck.
Okay, Here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hop-Ons podcast. For now, a community review podcast. At some point in the future, an AI technologies podcast sponsored by our Patreon supporters. My name is Colin Cox.
I don't know how much of the company I own, but I don't know if I would put my blessing on making it an AI company.
I think we have a great opportunity here.
What if we made scooters? That makes more sense.
You saw my pitch. I have several fantastic slides.
Is that going to go up on Patreon? Are you going to put the pitch?
Maybe.
Patreon pitch? Anyway, my name's John Phelps. What's up, Colin? What's up, dog?
I already created an image using our proprietary AI technology. Would you like to see it?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
Sure. So
I don't even want to know.
Well, no, I thought this would be fun, right? So what does everyone want? They want to be in a superhero movies.
Oh, you finished it. Okay.
So I
you got there. Yeah, show me the picture, please.
I seamlessly integrated you into a new Marvel movie.
Wait. Okay, I can't wait. Okay, that is you have found the oldest picture of me possible and made me into Thanos. It looks like. So, that's a picture of me from 2007, probably.
It's the same one I keep using over.
Yeah, Colin has just put my head on on Thanos.
Well, seamlessly using our Omega Theta Olympus AI technologies.
Seamlessly.
Yeah, I can put these images on Patreon if people want to see them.
You bring in full goof tonight, man.
Yeah, no, this is really exciting. No, John, we are here to discuss Season 6, Episode 11 of Community Modern Espionage. But John, before we do that, we have a new patron.
You're not... I'm surprised every time. Let me guess. Is it... Oh, well, it's not Pitbull. We know that. We sort of
It's right there in the show
a while
notes.
ago.
I actually put it in the show notes for you.
Oh, man, I didn't. I read the show notes and I missed that. Who is it?
It is Deadline 63.
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. That's a
fan.
great name also for the espionage episode.
Big fan on YouTube. Always leaves a lot of comments. I know the train, the proverbial train is pulling into the station, but it's nice to have a couple of people hop onto the caboose. We always have room in our caboose, so welcome.
We're
Deadline
always real
63.
fucking caked up.
Yeah.
Deadline, welcome. Thank you. Real name we don't know.
No idea.
If they told us, they'd have to kill us.
Yeah. No, Mr. or Mrs. Line, welcome. It's great to have you. So
appreciate you.
John,
Thank you.
Yeah. Modern Espionage, yet another paintball episode, originally aired on May the 19th, 2015, directed by Rob Schraub, and John, written by Mark Steegman?
Oh, Steegman. What a name.
John,
Stiegler. Yes.
Yeah. Stieg Stiegler is his name. John, this is your IMDb plot summary. When a secret game of paintball occurs on campus, Frankie threatens to expel those who participate. That's pretty. I mean, that's yeah, right.
I mean, if I had heard that, I would say this. I'm not gonna. That sounds boring.
Really?
When in reality, the show is like apparently they at some point use the. You remember in Batman Forever the Riddler when he puts the thing on his forehead
I do.
and it reads everybody's thoughts.
Yeah.
Do you think they did that for just me and you, and they decided to write an episode of television
Oh, the
that
box.
was just based around the shit that we like?
Yeah, yeah. No, this is very much extracted from and almost like written by a piece of AI, which again will become part of that soon. Yeah. No, like with us in mind, this is fantastic. Yeah. So John, Barker bite.
Oh man.
It's just like in the dog. This bigoted boy's a diggity dog.
I really like the episode. I don't like this bit because of the dogs barking. Also, I think just recently I noticed Cartman is in it, and I don't. What is Cartman saying?
Well, it's his dog song. So he's saying,
Okay.
"I'm the dog."
Yeah, I listened recently and thought, is that Cartman? And it is. You put Cartman in. Wonderful episode. Like I said, I feel like this is an episode that was written just for us. It's got all the stuff that we love in it. It's my favorite Marvel film of all time is Captain America Winter Soldier. They do a great homage to the elevator scene, which is the best scene in MCU history probably, apart from the everybody coming back at the end of Endgame when Cap gets the hammer and they all come through the portals and it's just fucking insane. Right, but the elevators are fantastic. Love that movie. Feels like a 1970s spy flick. They just put Captain America in it, and it's just a great film. Also, a lot of Mission Impossible 1 vibes to me. That's how I felt at the end when they have the earpieces and they're doing all the stuff in the room. I got that. Anyway, I love this episode. It's really good. What about you?
Yeah, no, a lot of biting here. Okay, a lot of dogs have a lot of full bellies because of all the biting. So
After a while, it wears off, right?
We're almost finished with the season. I think I basically made it. So yeah. But no, I like this episode too. I mean, I think one of the things we can talk about is how this episode compares to, previous paintball episodes. I think one of the things we saw with season 4 is this exhaustion with maybe these attempts to constantly iterate with paintball. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, there wasn't a season 5 paintball episode, right?
No, there was not.
Yeah.
There was the first. This is the third. This is
I
the
think
fourth one, but like the third story because the Western one was a 2-parter, right?
Right, but didn't they have one in season 3? Am I wrong about that? I guess they didn't, did they?
I think I read the Wikipedia that this is the third one.
Third one, but I was thinking it would need to be at least the 4th because season 4 technically has paintball stuff in it. Do you remember the Matrix thing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This episode is the third paintball episode of the series after Modern Warfare in season 1 and a 2-part in season 2.
Oh, so they're not counting season 4 where they do the paintball bit. I mean, it's not a proper paintball episode, but do you remember that at the end of season 4? Yeah.
I don't. I think I had a fever when that was. Maybe I had diarrhea when we did that one. I don't remember it.
Maybe. I don't know. It's where it's basically an homage to the Matrix and everything, and like the study group from the Darkest Timeline infiltrates this timeline, and they have a paintball fight in the cafeteria.
We watched that.
John, there's an episode on the feed where we discuss that episode. Yeah.
Are you sure that you weren't just talking to yourself and I wasn't there?
I could be. Yeah, it could be like, what was that movie? A Beautiful Mind with Russell Crowe. Is that right?
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, everybody.
God, how old is that? That movie's 20 years old at this
Oh
point.
03, 02? We're not going to talk about that. Anyway, this is a fantastic episode. This is a very reminded me when the show used to be very fun. That's what I'll say. It's a very fun episode, especially given the last episode, the RV episode, which was not the best in the world and was very heavy-handed. No pun intended, because they took a big hand. That was the point. But this was out the gate. Great. I did not like the Garrett Vicky parts. I'm gonna go ahead and just put that out there. That was not my favorite of the show. Everything else though is stellar. 10 out of 10. It's fantastic.
Yeah. I think a lot of people consider this maybe the best episode of the season. Yet somehow Vicky's play is still somehow better than Frost, I think, if I were to...
It has singing in it, which goes a long way. Ours was just us talking, and then occasionally I could hear people snoring out in the audience, lulling everyone else. It was great.
I consistently shame myself by describing this to my students. I think I mentioned this on the podcast before. And John, they all have this collective look like, this can't be real, what you're describing.
Yeah.
But it's very much a real thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would love to go to, maybe before the show's over, I'll go to Highlands. I think there's a picture of us on the Frost set that I could probably take a picture of and put on the Patreon feed. I bet
you
there
could.
is.
Yeah, I bet you could.
I'll have to find that, just so you know it is a real thing.
This is not something. This is not a
did.
collective fever dream or something.
No,
this is a thing we actually did at some point. So, yeah, no, Vicky's not great. I mean, it's an interesting framing device because it's utterly disconnected from the actual episode itself, perhaps. And then Garrett's at the end, right?
Yeah, but there's the moment when everything kicks off is due to Starburns, who shows back up after being gone for a bit, and he says one of my favorite lines in the show, "I'm gonna go get a shovel because comedy is dead." What a show! What a line! Yeah. And so he exits to the parking garage, and then it's shot almost like a horror film there at the beginning. Then it immediately turned into. It reminded me of like a Terminator. That's like the vibe I got.
A little bit, yeah.
When Todd approaches and he's wearing the like mirrored shades, and then we are given just not a big exposition dump, just a little bit. Starburns is like, I hear there's a Todd goes, there's a paintball game, and Starburns is like, no, there's no way there's a paintball game, but there is like this sort of clandestine paintball event happening, sponsored by City College, and
we think,
and it pops off, and Todd does some like cool parkour moves to get a shot on Starburns, but Starburns does like a rope-a-dope, tricks him.
He does. I was curious because we can probably talk about all of the referentiality to Marvel movies here, because I was thinking, does this feel or look like something from a Marvel movie? I think it actually does look like one of those fight sequences from The Winter Soldier. When they're like, I think it's the first time Captain America realizes it's the Bucky guy. That whole fight sequence.
His name is Bucky.
Okay,
not
I just
the
wanted
Bucky
to make sure
guy.
I got it right. Yeah, but
Rude.
Like that whole fight sequence, like I think I watched that sequence, like I think either Cap or Bucky does like a jump that's similar to what Todd does. So I think even the choreography of the fight in the garage, it's meant to feel a bit like The Winter Soldier.
That is it. The fight when they on the bridge. It starts on the bridge and then
maybe
What a fight scene! God, that movie fucking rules. Man, that's
cool
a good
movie.
flick.
Yeah.
I can see that for sure. It's got that same vibe. And then the Silver Balls, as he's called, the assassin, shows up. That is deliberate, I'm sure, because of Bucky's silver arm and Winter Soldier. And kills them both. And then we get the opening credits, which is a lot like with the Winter Soldier end credits.
It is.
Totally. I think it's like just like that.
Yeah.
And I think this is an episode that, if you are maybe like a lukewarm fan of the show, I think this is an episode that really shows the potential of Community. It's a very cinematic episode. There's a lot of action beats that are really quite great, actually. The whole sort of heisty thing they're doing in the cafeteria, or excuse me, in the dining room at the end, is really good shit. And there were moments when I was like genuinely enthralled by it. I think it's just it's a fantastic little episode.
Yeah, and that also feels a bit like The Winter Soldier because I read the summary, and I think the whole third act they like infiltrate. Is it Shield? I think they infiltrate Shield at the end,
Yes.
which I think feels like that's how I think. Obviously, there are some distinct differences, but I think that's how the end of the episode. That's how they want it to feel. It seems. But John, maybe this is a good place to start, right? So maybe we should take a moment now and discuss this season's because it's not now there's a lot of it in this episode, but it's not isolated to this episode. This season's commentary and at times critique of Marvel movies. And we'll see a bit of it in the season finale when both Annie and Jeff refer to Marvel movies, at least I suppose by this point as unremarkable. They call them these unremarkable Marvel movies.
Fascinating.
So, yeah, by 2015, John, Marvel released 10 films, and there were 2 films in the summer of 2015. So that would be 12 films by the end of 2015, approximately when they released this episode. Do you have any thoughts about the critique or the criticism of Marvel, the referentiality? Because, yeah, a lot of it is housed in this episode, but this does seem to be a season that wants to make reference to Marvel in interesting ways, and I didn't know if you had any thoughts about it.
Yeah, I think I have to like sort of side with Abed here. There's a moment when Abed references a very meta moment where he references the other paintball episodes, and he says they're stupid people that think they are parody when in fact they're homage, and I think this episode rides that line. There is the elevator scene is like pure homage to Winter Soldier, but then the scene maybe 2 scenes before that, when they're in the custodian closet or back room, whatever it is, and the light turns on, that's taken right from Winter Soldier when Nick Fury is shown to be alive. Spoiler alert, he's like in 40 movies, so if you haven't seen that one, not a big deal. But he's shown to be alive, and he pulls the light on in Cap's apartment, and he holds the paper up saying like we're being listened to or whatever. But that is such a parody of that scene. I mean, it's like ripped from Naked Gun basically, with the Dean stepping in the trash can and almost falling over, and then him trying to name the Avengers, and he calls him Dean Force One, which is so
Dean
good.
Force is what he finally lands on. Dean.
He says
Force.
Dean Force, then he goes Dean Force, then he goes One. Dean Force One. That's what he calls it.
Dean Force One.
And so I think they're definitely maybe paying respect to the Russos who shot some episodes of Community, so maybe they're doing that. I think the Russos filmed the first paintball episode, maybe.
Yeah, no, that was is it Jeremy Lin?
Oh, Fast and the Furious guy.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they are from the show, products of the show, I should say, and so they're definitely, I guess, paying tribute to them. But to call and I haven't seen this episode, but that stuck out to me. To call these movies unremarkable is at this time is such a terrible statement, because at that point, the first leading up to the last Avengers film, out of like 23 movies or something, only like 3 are big stinkers. The rest are sort of by the books, but they're incredibly watchable. So I don't know if I would call it unremarkable. I don't know. I think, is that like Dan Harmon peeking out saying,
I don't know.
I don't like
mean,
this,
So I can double check the chronology. I want to say by this point they've released that first Avengers movie, which was wildly popular, but I don't think the second one was out yet. So they're in between those two, I think, by 2015. Or like, what is it? The Age of Ultron, I think.
That would have come out right before this, maybe. Around this time.
I think it was maybe actually that summer. So like in a couple of months after this episode, I think that was the Age of Ultron, right? So John, I agree with you, because this is a thing, it's not exclusive to Abed, right? This is one of the moments when it feels like he's a proxy for the creator, if we wanted to think of it in those terms, because you and I have spoken about how Community seems tonally far more consistent with the aesthetics of the homage than with the aesthetics of parody. And again, we've spoken about this a lot, but I think
Yeah.
this episode feels a bit different because I agree with you, right? There are these sequences where it feels like, in particular, as you said, the elevator sequence. How can you think of that as anything but an homage? But the rest of the episode feels more parodic, perhaps, as if it has maybe less respect for this genre. And again, there's in a couple of episodes this moment when Jeff and Annie converse, and it feels like a kind of thesis statement about these kinds of aesthetic sensibilities. And I think when they say something like unremarkable, I don't necessarily know if that's the same as bad. I think it's actually quite consistent with what you said, like this idea that they're just fine, right? But I think the point is this way that maybe people, fans, whatever, and I don't mean to step on toes, the way they maybe make them more than what they actually are, right? What are these movies? And it's fine to enjoy them. Like, that's not the point, but I think the way people elevate them when maybe they shouldn't be elevated, perhaps if we just wanted to offer a strict, dispassionate aesthetic evaluation. But I think that's also consistent with how we've spoken about this show and how it thinks about itself, especially if you consider its comparisons to a show like The Big Bang Theory, where it's not, I don't know, maybe Harmon would say, not that it matters, but I think maybe Harmon would say, yes, you probably shouldn't watch The Big Bang Theory, but I don't think he would necessarily say it's bad. He might just say it's unremarkable. And what Community tries to do is to, again, elevate the aesthetics of television. And I cannot help but think that the point this episode almost wants to make is whatever these Marvel movies do, they're not elevating anything. That doesn't mean you cannot enjoy them. That doesn't mean you cannot watch them, but don't mistake them for something they're not, I suppose. But I don't know. Yeah, because at that point it feels, I mean, that feels like low-hanging fruit, right? Like, okay, so like a Marvel movie isn't Truffaut. Okay, sure. Right. I get it. But like, I don't know, that just doesn't feel like and maybe that's not the point the episode wants to make, but that doesn't feel like a particularly insightful point.
No, I agree with that. I think unremarkable is a fine word to use. I think early on when Marvel movies came out, I was I was a very big fan of them because they knew what they were doing. Like they obviously you could see a big plan behind it, and they knew how to tease things out, and they spaced them out enough so that you got excited. Like one in the summer, one at like Christmas or something. And so it was always going to the movies to see a big blockbuster in the summer or Christmas is phenomenal. I don't even care if I'm into the movie. Like, I'll still go watch it because it's a great experience. And I think the films are definitely colored by numbers, but to like discount what they did as like a whole over the course of, at this point it had been 7 years. That's wild, man. It's a lot to think about. But yeah, I think there's good and bad criticisms there. I do think that's a little bit of like Harmon snarkiness coming out, but also at the same time, I think the writers, the creators are understanding like which Marvel films are really good and which ones really work. I think if you had to like take a list of what are the best films in the MCU, the top three are probably, I mean, Winter Soldier is going to be up there. It might be number one. Black Panther might be number one, but there's going to be that's going to be way up there because it's an artistically well done piece of media. It just really is. You could put Ethan Hunt in the Captain America role and you have another Mission Impossible movie. Like that's,
yeah.
That's how it feels. And so, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think they're definitely playing favorites. And at this point, they're way ahead of us in the fatigue. Now I'm full on fucking Marvel fatigue, dude. I don't give a shit about any of these things that are coming out. When I see them, I go, oh, what a groaner all the time with these things. So yeah, I think they just beat us to the punch there, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think that's a wonderful way to think about it. This idea that they have favorites, because I would agree. I've watched, I think, probably The Winter Soldier a couple of times. It's an aesthetically pleasing film, and I think you would probably need to be someone who's incredibly cynical not to think of it that way. But I agree with you. This is what's fascinating to me, John. Like, you're right. I think that they, by describing those movies as unremarkable, perhaps they are indicating this sense of fatigue that we should all have. It's funny, I've told you this. I've watched a couple of recent Marvel movies. I think they're just fine. Like, I don't, the fatigue is actually confusing to me. Like, I would have experienced the fatigue around the time that those like last Avengers movies, because I've watched those and thought these are not movies. I don't know what these are, but they're not movies. Like, I don't know what this is. Like, I know I feel like old Italian filmmaker shouting at clouds, but it's like they're fine for what they are, but they're not movies. But yeah, I've watched these recent Marvel films and thought these are, I mean, I think they're just fine, right? I don't understand. So it's interesting how, like, as people start to express, as you said, this trepidation and this fatigue, I think these movies are, at least their recent offerings, by my estimation, they're not terribly bad. Like, it's interesting to me how the reception doesn't seem to mirror the quality of the films themselves. And I think maybe that's something that Community's offering this season is, however you feel about these movies, at least by the show's estimation, it doesn't seem to match or mirror the aesthetic quality of the product itself. And maybe that's something interesting that people, it seems by this show's estimation, never accurately assess these movies. There's something else that's allowing them to arrive at certain aesthetic determinations, but it's not the aesthetics themselves. And that's interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think they're very smart at how they pay homage / parody aspects from, especially Winter Soldier. The putting the Dean in the elevator scene is great because it's sort of twofold. I mean, number one, we would never expect the Dean to be like this miraculous badass that he is, which is like such a juxtaposition to in Captain America when he gets trapped in an elevator with a bunch of people. Your immediate thought is he's going to fuck up all these dudes, and it's going to be really great to watch. You know, and there's that moment where he says, before we get started, would anyone like to get out? It's like, great. Like, he knows I'm going to wreck everyone in here. I'm Captain America.
Right.
But I love that the Dean, who was like Steve Rogers before he becomes Captain America, the scrawniest person alive, is also like an accidental super soldier who is incredibly good at dealing with these combatants, but like in the most Magoo of ways, which is such a great way to picture what like an American superhero should be like. Somebody that accidentally is maybe okay at doing things. And I really like that. I mean, that's purposeful and it's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like Hicks and I, a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about Tolkien and his concept called the eucatastrophe. And Tolkien, for anyone who doesn't know this, he, I believe, first introduced it when he was delivering a lecture that later became an essay about fairy tales. And he described how, you know, there's the catastrophe, right? Catastrophic things that can happen in a narrative. But he said he always liked and really searched for and championed the eucatastrophe, which for him was this unexpected thing that might happen in a story to fundamentally shift the story. And for someone like Tolkien, it was always something that wasn't even plausible within the world of the narrative itself. It's like this alien force that invades the narrative. And what I think is interesting about so many Marvel movies is, like, you're right, when Captain America does what he does in the elevator, that's not a moment of eucatastrophe. That's exactly what we expect to happen.
Correct.
But in the same way that, like, Gollum destroys the ring by fighting Frodo for it. That's for Tolkien, a eucatastrophic moment. I think the Dean actually doing what he does is a kind of eucatastrophic moment. This is not something he's capable of doing. He's not capable of this at all. It's just this thing that almost invades the narrative in some ways. And I think as an audience, we're left to just delight in it, which is part of what I agree, I think is so wonderful about it, because it is so unexpected. And that's really the point. And I think he just clumsily, like, I don't know, wrecks like 7 people or something. I think that's right. So,
but the last guy, like, purposefully, they show that he's a bit of a badass when he wants to be. I think this episode in particular does a very good job at, like, it sort of utilizing this writing style of, like, the the meanwhile back at the ranch sort of writing style, which is my favorite thing, where we go with a group of people for a second, and then when that story needs a break, meanwhile back at the ranch, we see like the Dean in this, and so like I think at this point, that's the reason Winter Soldier works, is because there's like branching stories that we can actually be involved with characters, and maybe at that point it gets to the point where you said the last Avengers movie, there's just so much confusion and loud noises that just like standard basic writing practices are just thrown out the window. I'll never forget when I watched Endgame, which was the final one, and there's that moment when Cap is facing off against all the bad guys, and then he hears Sam over his radio, and they're all coming back, and I thought, oh my god, the whole theater went nuts, and I thought this is fantastic. And then there's that moment when Peter Parker has to take the Infinity Gauntlet across this like wasteland, and then for some reason all the women just show up.
Oh yeah,
to help him. Do you remember this?
I think this is something you and I have spoken about. This idea that I suppose, in theory, need more movies featuring interesting female characters, but
right.
It feels like this was the equivalent of like a hastily written HR email about how you cannot say sexually explicit things at company parties. It's like
I saw someone
the girls. Let's get them all together. See, like, look, we're okay, right? Are we good? We're good. I think we're good. So
I saw someone say those films are like the cinematic equivalent of Homer Simpson's makeup shotgun, when he just shoots Marge with his shotgun and puts all the makeup on. And I always think about that. And so when I see like this episode of Community is like so sharply, precisely written, I get calling these films unremarkable, because they sort of are.
But that's okay.
When you sit down, you're going to have a good time. You don't have to think about anything. You're not going to be challenged at all. You're going to watch Spider-Man swing around and punch a guy, and you're going to go, that was pretty fucking cool, and then you're going to go home.
Yeah, and it is funny, the only times that like you might be challenged, if you interpret something in those movies as a challenge, you should probably assess your politics, I think, like that.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. Yeah. So
all those girls fighting together, I don't like that. Well, okay, let's focus on that. Yeah.
But that scene, I thought, this is the most unremarkable way to say that we appreciate women. I thought, come on, dog.
Yeah.
This is so bad.
Yeah.
This is so bad. But
I wish they just brought like every woman from all, like Aunt May is there as well. Like she has no powers, no guns.
Yeah, she just shows up. Oh my god. That would be amazing. Aunt May's there.
The reporter that Tony Stark slept with in the first movie, she's just there as well.
Yeah, Marissa Tomei's there with a baseball bat,
stabbing people with her pen. Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, I think like that's part of what I find interesting, John, is hearing you talk about like the narrative structure of this essay. Excuse me, of this episode, the narrative structure of this episode, because I think part of what we often see in these larger popcorn summer tentpole movies is really this inability to seamlessly weave all of these narratives together. And I think you and I probably first experienced it and reckoned with it with The Phantom Menace, like back in 1997, like watching all of these narratives collide and really like sink and drown under the weight of it all. But then, and I get it, like this is 30 minutes, it's not 2 hours, but seeing how they're able to see, because characters are in so many different places so often, but seeing how they all seamlessly collide and integrate at the end of the episode is really, it's good. Yeah, it's just good. And the camera work in this episode, there's a lot of wonderful quick cutting, that jarring camera pushing that you see from time to time in a lot of action movies, like Mission Impossible movies from time to time. Yeah, beautifully structured episode, beautifully shot episode as well. I really enjoyed it.
Especially when Jeff shoots the unarmed guy,
John,
at the dinner that's filmed incredibly well.
It's perfect.
I love the lead into it is Frankie wants to start a new I don't know what
tradition.
a new tradition where they just pop balloons, which is
Yeah.
great. And it causes a bunch of confusion, and then we get this great slow motion sort of. It almost reminded me of like uh, someone trying to save the president, like they jump in front of him. That's how it's filmed.
I was about to say, like, it felt more like a political thriller by the end, which I know, The Winter Soldier, it's in theory, like, aesthetically meant to feel like, I don't know, political espionage thrillers from the 1970s, and you could easily see a moment like that happening in one of those movies, like Blowout, for example,
Oh,
or
sure. What a flick.
yeah, All the King's Men.
Uh,
All the King's Men? No, 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 no. All the President's Men. Sorry.
yeah, also
Yeah.
great. I thought you would appreciate the Bond stuff that's in the movie, the
Yeah.
show. Excuse me. The silver balls is definitely a rip of the man with the golden gun. I would
There's a
assume.
lot of like Man with the Golden Gun, I think,
And I think
allusions.
at the end of Man with Golden Gun, don't they go to like a amusement park or something, and they do like a fun house thing? I think that's what happens. And here he just does mannequins in a custodial museum, which looks like a closet. I love that. What a great little piece of art department development that is. Where what would the door to a custodial museum look like? The janitorial closet, of
Yeah.
course. It's
So I
great.
don't remember the name of the character, but in the movie, played by Christopher Lee, he is the man with the golden gun.
Oh, Saruman, that's his name.
Yeah, that is correct. And John, yeah, there he has like a funhouse mirror attraction, and Bond just walks through it and needs to successfully shoot him. It's the silliest. There's like Roger Moore, James Bond mannequins. It's the silliest thing you've ever seen. It's amazing. It's like peak like weird kitschy Bond. It's really silly and really funny. And he has like a small person as his assistant. I think Knick Knack is the character's name, maybe. John, it's not the most like not good. We'll just say wouldn't get made in 2024. You won't see that in the new Bond movie. So
We should say, Camille Nanjiani, fantastic actor. I love him
amazing. Yeah.
immensely. Would end up in the worst MCU movie
Is that
has
really
ever
the
been
worst
made.
one? I haven't seen it before.
Oh my Christ, it's so bad.
Is it really?
Oh,
Okay.
boy, oh boy, oh boy, it's a rough one. He got ripped though. He got huge for it. His power in that is he shoots lasers out his fingers.
Are you serious?
Is that cool? I don't know. It's fucking awesome.
I mean,
huh?
I guess it can look cool. I mean like just dispassionately describe anything that happens in any of these movies, and I think theoretically it could sound silly or amazing just depending on the execution.
Yeah, it's not the bad. I mean, it's a bummer they're not going to make any more because it did tremendously bad.
Did
So,
it really? Okay.
I think that was the first real start of the MCU falling into the ashes that it is now, where Bob Iger's like, we got to redo this shit. We've lost everything. I think
Oh,
they're even
really?
like bringing
Okay.
back Downey. That's the rumor. That Downey's going to come back.
Wow, I thought he died. Spoilers.
Well, who knows? Who knows? Not in real life. He's alive. He just won an Oscar.
He's very much alive. So, John, I think something else we should discuss with this episode. So, it's as we've just illustrated, I think wants to have a conversation about Marvel movies, maybe the Marvel aesthetic, the increase in popularity, but like a great community episode, it wants to comment on itself as well. Frankie says something interesting early in the episode about how this era of the show, but she doesn't say the show, but it's clear that she's referencing the show, that this era must end. Abed even says something interesting about how the thing to hate this year is the game. I'm curious, because again, this is not the first paintball episode. Do you have any thoughts about how this episode engages with Community as a show that seems to like to rinse and repeat this particular kind of episode?
Yeah, that line, hate the game, could mean so many things. I mean, it could mean like the game of trying to find a company that will run your show, trying to find advertisers. It also could meta textually mean, normally when we get this game, it means that the season is about to come to an end. So that could be something Abed's thinking about. That's a really unique line that can mean so many things.
Yeah.
They're not as in your face about needing a network like Arrested Development was, which was just chef's kiss, 10 out of 10. But I think that line is a lot heavier than it meant to be. It could mean a lot of things. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, again, thinking about how you said this earlier, and I think you said this earlier this season about how Community at times this season, they're doing the work of predicting and suggesting, and perhaps time has confirmed that they're right. Some interesting shifts in trends in popular media and how people respond to it and consume it. I think now, would you not say the thing that's popular and kitschy is to say exactly what you said earlier, which is, ugh, I have so much fatigue for Marvel, right? Isn't that like I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, every like guys who bullied me relentlessly in high school were wearing like Spider-Man t-shirts,
Yeah,
right?
for
Like
sure.
like these like a decade ago or even a bit less, the thing was not to hate the game, but everyone loved the game, right? Now, I wonder if, even though this episode is almost a decade old, if what it's really suggesting is once it gets to this, once you get to this point, the popular thing will be to be contrarian about it, even if maybe you don't have a reason to be contrarian about it.
That's interesting. See, there's a lot of meanings you could take with that. If you want to read into the fact that if you think that this episode is doing that much work at making commentary and criticizing Disney and Marvel, then sure, I think that's a perfect read of it. I think I just like mine. I think I just like mine more because I
Okay.
like me more than you, is what I say.
I am curious though, as someone who really likes, well, in theory, Marvel and superhero
Yeah.
properties. Do you feel? How do you feel about the fact that you would describe yourself as someone who has fatigue about this? How does that? How do you feel about having that feeling?
Well, I mean, now it's the end thing, right? That's what we all do. We all
Yeah.
feel that way. So much so that, yeah, I think they had, I don't even know, like 10 things planned, and now they've cut them all back to like 2 movies because no one is watching this stuff anymore. I think we're all. Marvel was this lightning in a bottle that somehow lasted for almost 20 years. You know, it was just this perfect capsule of what we needed. The fact that Iron Man took off the way it did is a testament to Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau and Marvel having the courage to just turn them loose and say, go make something. And people ate it up. And I think we are at this point where it's just so day to day and so normal. It's like Star Wars. I am so fatigued on everything Star Wars. I watched this video and somebody said, "What's it like to live so long to see all your favorite franchises burn in the sun?" And I thought, well, that's where we're at right now. And now, I think Community was ahead of its time. I think it is definitely the kitschy thing to do now is just to shit on it. And I don't discard people that like it. I think that's great. Especially like, younger audiences. This is something for them that they can we never had that growing up. We had Back to the Future was the closest I can remember when at the end of Back to the Future 2 you saw the trailer for 3 and I thought, "Oh my god, are you kidding me? They've already made this one, But now the pipeline's like 20 years out. Tom Holland's going to be fucking 65 and be Spider-Man. We're always going to have to go. The de-aging looked pretty good on that one, huh?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they're definitely ahead of their time. I think they felt it a lot faster than we did. And I'm sure in the studio world, the Hollywood world, it was probably just crushing everything that you wanted to do. If you're making movies and you're not making this cinematic universe, what are you doing, And I'm glad that that's on the downhill turn because I fucking hate it. I hate that. I want original IP back, and I think that's what Community's trying to do here. I think.
Yeah, but it's also an interesting way to comment on itself, I suppose. Like how
Yeah,
many
yeah,
even people who really love this show, I've heard them talk about seasons 5 and season 6. Well, seasons 5 and 6, and I must confess it feels like the fashionable thing to do is to constantly say, well, they can call this community, but like it's not season 2, right? And there are so many different ways to maybe justify
yeah.
feeling the way someone might feel, because it's funny, John, when I listen to you, for example, talk about Star Wars, I get the distinct impression that you've liked a lot of what they've done recently, yet you're overarching, and I'm not just picking on you, that's not my point. I think what you're describing is representative of how a lot of people feel, even though I've heard you say really complimentary things about some of the stuff they've done with Star Wars recently, which is not to say you've had complimentary things to say about everything, but I do think it's interesting how, like, what is fashionable to say, what is rhetorically popular to say, often runs contrary to how you might feel about those individual parts and pieces of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as like the Star Wars things goes, I think after this, when this last trilogy ended with the Rise of Skywalker, which was the most hilarious, wild film that I've ever seen in my entire existence.
I rewatched it over Christmas. It is a wildly unwatchable movie. It's
It's so
insane.
bad.
It's so.
It's
I mean,
so
I'm
bad.
not kidding. It is laughably unwatchable. I could not
There's
believe it. Yeah.
the moment in there a moment when they put horses on one of the Death Star. Anyway, it was I just
There's like
remember
there's like
thinking,
horses running on a spaceship.
and then the my favorite thing in that whole movie, in the whole fucking thing, is when they didn't know how to fly. That was my favorite thing. The ships didn't know, they had one ship that was their navigation, and all the other ships looked after it. And I thought, just go up, just go towards the sky. That's all you have to do. The universe is infinite. But yeah, I think there were things that I really liked a lot with Star Wars, and as far as the community thing goes, I really appreciate that, that what you're saying, that criticism of the fashionable thing to do is to hate on seasons 5 and 6, and especially season 4. And while season 4 wasn't our favorite, it is the most interesting season of the
It
show
has
by
the
far.
weirdest episode of the show I've ever seen.
Yeah,
Pierce's
by
house,
far.
the Pierce,
It's so crazy.
the Hawthorne Mansion is amazing. Yeah.
One of my favorite memories of the podcast is recording that episode, because we just kept delving into the wildest stuff. But to discard season 5, which is tremendously good. I think season 5 is my favorite season of the show. It just had episodes that were they took so many chances and said so many good things, and also are doing it in a tumultuous time where they don't know where they're going to be, they don't know what they're going to be doing, and still are doing shows like G.I. Jeff, which is my favorite episode of the show. I think that there's a weird, terrible part of our society that likes to bandwagon jumping on things people like just to do it, and I'm so sick of that as a person. I think my dislike for like Star Wars and Marvels, because when you and I were younger, when episode 1 and 2 and 3 came out, it was the biggest fucking thing on planet Earth, on the
Yeah,
universe.
yeah,
It was
it was.
huge.
Yeah.
And when we were younger, the great story about that. When we were younger, you and I watched episode 3 together at the Cinemall when it came out,
And
midnight.
episode 2, I think we watched both of them together.
And I can remember after we watched episode 3, no one talked because it was so bad. We all just got up and walked out.
Yeah.
But in my heart, I was like, I still love Star Wars. I'm still there. So I think Community is definitely maybe being snarky, but it also is. I love this idea. It may be trying to like mirror back some criticisms at fans, at the community itself, and just show them like, what are you doing? We're trying. I don't know. It's interesting.
No, I think that's a great point, and I was hearing you talk about it. So I've mentioned figures like Freud, Lacan, psychoanalysis. Lacan, he has this concept called the non-duped heir, and his point quite simply is you make the biggest mistake when you refuse not to allow yourself to be fooled by something. It's like so it's this way of thinking about how if you constantly adopt the behavior that you were describing, right? Which is whether I know it or not, whether I understand what I'm doing or not, I refuse to even entertain the idea that I could like this.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lacan would maybe call that an example of the non-duped heir, this idea that like you refuse to let this thing affect you in some way. And like, sure, here's the thing. You can see really silly videos of people in 1997 like laughably jazzed about the Phantom Menace, and then they watch it and their reaction is but like Lacan would say that's the proper orientation, is to allow a thing to fool you. If you constantly adopt this posture or position like I won't be fooled by a thing, and I think it's particularly useful when thinking about like really popular bits of entertainment, what are you really doing then if you don't let the thing fool you, if you don't let the thing affect you, if you don't create a situation where you might look like an idiot? I think for Lacan, that's the greater mistake, right? Is to not allow a thing to affect you in some way. And that's what I feel like when I hear Abed say something like, this year, it's popular to hate the game. What he's really talking about is how you are possibly doing yourself a greater disservice by not allowing this thing to affect you, even if it means you look stupid.
Yeah, and when you were talking about that, I thought this episode, and maybe it's just me, and now that we're talking about this, but what if the episode is trying to say it's okay to like silly things, because at the end of the day, this episode is just about a bunch of adults playing like cops and robbers again,
Sure.
And when you think about like a Marvel film at its like bare bones, that's all it is. It's just a good guy and a bad guy. And
It's
so
white hats and black hats, right?
perhaps like the show's trying to say it's okay to like these things if you are aware that they're just something that you've had forever.
Yeah.
They just look a lot slicker than anything else that you've seen.
And even if you are unaware of what it is, it's far better to be tricked by it, to be fooled by it, to be affected by it, and then to later realize, oh, so it's really just like black hats and white hats? Huh, I thought there was more to it than that. That's better than being someone who's always like, oh yeah, Marvel movies? No thanks. I'm going to go hang out with my friend Daria for a moment. Right?
Yeah. I mean, because even this episode, like, looks slick, sounds slick, has great camera work, but at the end of the day, it's just adults are shooting each other with paintball guns. Like, that's all that's happening.
That's all this is. Yeah. No, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, that's really good.
I do want to say, and I don't know if you're aware of this, this is actually the 25th anniversary of Phantom Menace. It came out in 99. And the movie itself, will be playing in theaters like in the next couple weeks, Colin.
Well, I can't
if you want to go watch the Phantom Menace again and see the first screen appearance of America's darling Jar Jar Binks.
John, listen, there's nothing I like more than flat, uninspired compositions with little to no camera movement. It's as if, Lucas was allergic to moving the camera in that movie.
Last week, I was at my friend one of my friend's houses, and we watched Attack of the Clones, and it is quite possibly
it's dreadful.
Not only bad, but it's so confusing. I kept saying, "What is happening?" And then when I would figure out the story was so weird. Like Obi-Wan he finds a planet. And lands where the exact spot is for this planet where they're making clones.
Camino.
And they think he's Count Dooku, Colin.
They do, yeah.
This is now the Attack of the Clones minute. And then he goes back up and he reports to Yoda or fucking whoever, Mace and the tall four-headed Jedi,
Sure.
and Kit Fisto, and he's like, listen, they're making clones, and it's bad, huh? And they're like, yeah, it's bad. But then, like 2 minutes later, they're like, we got this clone army, and I thought, well, what's the fucking? Why are you so upset
Yeah.
that he went and found the clones? If you're gonna use them, Yoda, you big green bitch, it doesn't make any sense to me.
This is a Red Letter Media thing. I've always wondered, and I get it. This is more a genre conceit than anything else. But in the Phantom Menace, when the council knows there is a Sith Lord who has these fantastic connected glow sticks, and like he almost killed this established Jedi Master. Why are you only sending 2 Jedis back? And they make this joke where, like, as the doors open and Darth Maul's standing there, like, oh, I'm bad, I'm gonna beat you up. It's like there's like thousands of Jedi. It's like, yeah. That's why didn't you do that? Yeah, like send 10 Jedi. Yeah,
it's so wildly bad.
Yeah.
And it does play like an old man wrote them all on a yellow legal pad, and no one second guessed him.
No, I know. I think about this so often. Like, why are we not sending dozens of Jedi for all of these missions? It's like, no, not one. Like, we didn't send one soldier to kill Osama bin Laden. We sent like a big troop of them, right? It's like, no, like send a small tactical army if you know there's like Sith shenanigans happening in the galaxy. Like, what are you doing?
The best part in that, and then we can wrap it up, is when they're talking about they force run at the beginning of Phantom Menace. It shows that they can run fast as fuck. And then at the end, when Darth Maul and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon's fighting Darth Maul, and Obi-Wan has to wait for these fucking doors to open and close.
Those doors.
And as he's waiting, Qui-Gon gets stabbed in the stomach. And they're like, "Why do you think you could force run?" And he gets stabbed in the stomach, and he goes, "Oh, that would have been a good time." And I think about that all the time. Why didn't you just force run? I've seen you do it.
Listen, I think about that chamber
I hate
often.
these fucking movies. What a bunch of nerds
think about,
right now.
I think about that chamber so often because I think it's interesting and beautifully rendered, but I think, what is this for? And does like some guy have like a card to turn all those things off? Because could you imagine trying to walk? Like, I just need to go, like, Dave, I just need to go change the filter. Can you give me the card that turns all the weird beams off? No, Dave, because
Why
I'll
do
be
we
gone
have
for
these?
45 minutes. You know how long it takes me. You know about my sciatica. I can't do the force run thing. I'll be here all day.
Accidentally,
It's the
like, drop your
worst.
keys and bend over to pick them up and get your whole head cut off.
Yeah, I know. It's like, guess I'll meditate now that I'm in the middle of this weird force thing. All I need to
fucking
do
hate
is
that
change
movie.
the air filters. Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay,
it's a great
couple of-
it's a great episode. Go ahead. Yes.
Great episode. Couple of other things that I wanted to discuss.
Yes.
So at the end, Custodian LePerry says, we're all here because we can't have nice things. And this feels like, let us say, a variation on a theme the show's returned to quite often about Greendale being a place for losers. But I guess, do you have any thoughts about what Frankie then represents? Does she represent a potential threat as a departure from this idea? Because, again, we see Custodian LePerry basically say, and I think Winger, again, this is a variation on a theme. Winger has said something similar in the past, that how much can we change this place before it's no longer Greendale? And it feels like this is not just a feeling Jeff has, but it's a feeling that's permeated the school, John, where now everyone's terrified of what Frankie ultimately represents and how she might represent a kind of departure for this place that would make it inhospitable to the sorts of people that occupy this space.
No, I understand what you're saying, and I love. To me, Frankie is one of my favorite characters in any media because I think she is a character who is incredibly empathetic, which I love. She's brilliant. She's very well written, and she also is really good at being a controller of chaos. And I think they put her here for this reason. I think Frankie is aware, and there's the moment when she shows off the new Greendale, which is just this paper model. And Jeff's like, how are we going to have the money to do this? She's like, no, this is just an idea of what I would like Greendale to be in our heads, basically. And so I think Frankie realizes that nothing will change, but she at least, I think, along with the Dean, can control the chaos. And I think that's all that she needs to do. And she's quite good at it. And I think as a character, I think that's what she represents. I've never felt her as... And I think even Jeff goes so far as to say at the end, Frankie is my friend. And I think he even understands that, like them, she also is a loser. Look where she got placed, you know. And she has to make the best of it. And I think that is ultimately what her model is suggesting. This is the best we can make of Greendale in my head, so let's just keep going.
Yeah, no, that's
what I think.
Yeah, that's fantastic, John. I think in particular this idea that like mistaking Frankie for someone who isn't like you, I guess, is really the mistake that Custodian LePerry makes here. Like thinking that, like, is she more capable than some people here? Sure, but all of those determinations exist on a continuum, right? And I'm sorry, like, again, on a long enough continuum, we're all losers, I think. And that's, I think, again, this significant point the show, I would argue, at its best makes is this is a place for everyone because everyone is a loser. Everyone is lacking. Some of us just hide it better than others. Because, I mean, if you think about, like, Frankie had an idea to put prisoners on iPads. She agreed. She clearly was to some degree part of the approval process for the grifting class. Like, she's not as capable as she appears. She's made some pretty interesting mistakes. But yeah, no, I again, just this idea of mistaking her for something she's not. Because it's, I think what's fascinating is for Greendale to really embody this larger inclusive point about how, no, this needs to be a place for everyone. This is a place for everyone. Well, figures like Frankie need to have a place here too. And yeah, I agree with you. It's only in assuming that she represents a departure instead of assuming that, no, having her here only further grounds this place in the kind of emancipatory idea that I think it wants to be, which is, no, this is really like everyone has a place here because everyone is, you know, a clumsy piece of shit. And that's a beautiful idea.
That's why you're all here listening. Thank you.
Welcome.
We've talked so long tonight.
Well, I mean, some of that's because of the AI stuff at the beginning.
Which I blame fully on you.
As you should.
Do you have
because
anything
it was
else you'd like to
exclusively
talk
my
about
fault.
before we exit?
Is there anything else I want to talk about? I don't think so. I think we discussed everything. The earpieces are amazing.
They're fantastic.
I love the earpieces.
They are the most, which I love, because in the Avengers movies, no one's ever wearing anything. They just touch their ear like they can hear.
It's my favorite thing ever, John. It's my it's like, do they have a channel? And everyone's like, tune it to that channel, because there are moments when characters are like, do it, and I'm thinking, I never saw you put a thing in your ear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible does that too. I don't care. Let it ride. That's great.
It's perfect. But there's like these like big, I think Jeff says something about Armenian stereotypes.
Yeah, it's like a Bluetooth, like a huge antenna on it. And all their names, all their code names are just Batman, different Batman actors.
Yeah.
Clooney and Bale,
Keaton,
and that's great. That's great.
Yeah, it's really solid. As the resident tech person, do they have like encryption correct? Is that how encryptions work?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not that techie.
Okay.
Probably. Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. John says
Elroy
it
made a
is.
VR game. He's brilliant.
You are the Wozniak of this podcast, so I
Yeah.
believe you.
Oh my God.
He was the brains.
Colin, that's our conversation for season 6, episode 11, Modern Espionage. Am I right?
It's a phone. It's a music playing device. Are you getting it?
What's that?
Well, see, I'm the Jobs then, I guess.
Okay, well, that's
That was
ridiculous.
his-
I didn't read anything. I was just hoping I got it right. Colin, who makes the Dean's List for you? Who's your favorite performance in this episode?
Only because of the heckling, I think it's Abed. His heckling
yeah?
is fantastic.
Big U vibes. That's big Colin vibes.
Is it really? Okay,
Yeah.
I don't like heckling.
For me, it's Elroy. He's
Okay.
amazing. When he says, "I made a poopy" at the end, is that what he said? I made a poopy.
Yeah,
That
I think
shit's
that's what he
amazing.
said. Yeah.
Oh, and my favorite line in the whole episode is when they all have to act like babies, and Annie goes, "How do you spell biscotti?" No, she says, "How do you say biscotti?" That shit's so good. She's so like formal about it. Oh, man, it was so cute. Anyway, what's the next thing? Do the next
John,
one.
I need you to check. John, I need you to check the syllabus.
That's it.
This is where you identify your favorite bit of metatextual referencing and
Oh.
intertextual play. What do you got?
That's a hard one. There's so much in this. It's the elevator fight. It's done spectacularly well. I love it. I watched it like 3 times. It's great. What about you?
I think I'll take the man with the golden gun reference because it is the silliest of bot. Well, no, it's not as silly as
it's not true.
Moonraker.
There's no way
it's
that's
not
true.
As silly. It's pretty silly.
Doesn't one Bond villain get blown up with like hydrogen and float to the ceiling and explode?
That's
Is that Live and Let Die? No,
That is living. Yeah, that's live and
That
let
is?
die. Yeah,
that happens. Isn't
Walk
there
into
one
the
where they're
view-
on the moon?
that's Moonraker is
That happens in that. They go
yeah,
to the moon.
So Walken's in A View to a Kill. I know we've talked about this, and John, his line reading, "It's a view to a kill." It's spectacular. It's so good. He's like, he's like on a floating thing. I don't remember what it was exactly, but he was floating in the air. Said, "It's a view to a kill."
I would like to hear your best lines, please.
Okay, paint, ball. I think Jeff says that.
No,
maybe
Elroy says that. He's trying to
oh,
pretend like he doesn't know what it is.
No, thank you. Yeah, for a guy who's not playing, you sure are shooting a bunch of mothers. That's an Elroy line.
So good.
Well's a hole in the ground when you're thirsty. I'm telling you, I ain't playing no paintball. That's a Jeff line.
It's a Jeff line, yeah, very good.
But desperate deans call for dean sprint measures.
So good, man. How did he get through that without just dying?
I'm sure he did. We forgot Kugler's back, man.
Oh, Kugler's back.
Yeah.
He's when he keeps
Excuse
missing.
me, good sir. If I could have the mic attention shoppers, there's a sale on partying in my pants aisle. Everything in my pants must go.
He keeps missaying Abed's name. He calls him Aladdin. And then he calls him Omar in the next scene. That shit's incredible.
Oh, it's a bad question. I just get so many narcs, is something Kugler says. Okay, this is an exchange between Annie and Kugler. Who is Silver Man? My accountant? Oh, how do you know David?
How do you know David? Fucking great.
Okay, this is a Brita line, dude. Yes, hello, can I get a bogey with a gun, no pickles, and 3 orders of gun?
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, here it is. Oh, what an exciting story. We've got a real-life M. Night Shyamalan here. It's Shyamalan. Unfortunately, as with his stories, I don't anticipate yours holding up. Easy target. Who's heckling me? Oh, of course, it's the Indian guy. I'm Arabic. Ugh. Okay, let's go with that. It's so weird.
Yeah. My also a favorite Easter egg. The guy who was playing the DJ, who said there's a new club opening up called Club Club Club, which was very funny. That's
Meow Meow
Steve
Beans.
Agee, who is an actor, who he was the motion actor for King Shark in the Suicide Squad movie that James Gunn made. And he's also in Peacemaker, the Peacemaker show. He's come a long way since playing the DJ.
Yeah. He, I think he was one of the Meow Meow Beans guys.
He was one of the Meow Meow Beans guys. Yes.
Yeah.
Love that. Love it.
Okay. Well, John, that's our conversation for. I think you just said this. Season 6, Episode 11, Modern Espionage. John Phelps, we have a Patreon page.
Oh my God, we do. Not much left. I don't know what we're going to do with that. But if you want to hear the exclusive bullshit that's on there, it's $3 a month. Above that, $7. You become producer. We get to say thank you, but just for like 2 more episodes. So you better fucking hop on, if you know what I'm saying. You also get a sticker of the show and all the content above that. You get a shirt, a sticker, the content above that. We get to watch Mission Impossible together, the first one. Let's see if you can follow me around the room. That's the best line in that movie.
Well, if you join the Patreon, you could maybe become an angel investor in our new AI tech startup.
We're not doing that. We're not going to do that one. I refuse to do that. Please don't.
Wozniak left Apple. If he's got to go, he's got to go.
You were doing a fast spinner there for a second. You like dipped into that shit for a second. Don't act like you didn't. Steve Jobs is a fantastic movie, by the way. So good.
Oh, terrible man, but yeah.
Fucking
John,
awful dude.
We have patrons. Thank you to the following patrons and hopefully angel investors of the Hop-Ons Incorporated podcast media organization. Oh, AI tech company. I forgot what we were. It's fine. I'll clean it up.
Forgot it.
He
forgot it.
No, it's fine. Whatever. Isaacson won't put that in my biography. So thank you to Anthony, Katana, Crendy, Rachel, Kate, Daniel, Lars, Rob, Robin, Rob, Jeff, and Andrew. And John's right. The Patreon link is the first one in the show notes. The second link is to our Threadless page if you would like Hop-On's podcast merchandise. And John, if someone were so inclined as to rate and review the podcast, what would you say? What would I say?
You better get on it. Ratings and reviews help the show get noticed, and we will read your fucking review here on the air. My dogs are upstairs running around like a herd of goddamn elephants above me. Colin.
We can end it here. Yeah.
Is that how we're going to end the show? What a bummer. People listen for an hour 20, and they're just going to go, oh, we can end it here. Like a sad fart, the show goes out.
Like one of your Ozempic farts. It's just...
They're burps. Love you. All right, see you guys later.